Good evening, Sharks fans. The toughest road trip in franchise history is now a thing of the past. I'm dubbing it the toughest road trip in franchise history, and you could say there were roadies of less games and more difficult opponents, or travel that didn't make sense, like Florida up to Chicago to New York, back down to Dallas. But I'm saying training camp for 2+ weeks, then the first dozen games of the season on the road. And fortunately, they were able to be home last week. It was a nice reset. It was a nice opportunity. Glad they took advantage of it, if nothing else, to get their personal lives a little bit more settled. But 5-6-1 is how the Sharks stand after a dozen games of their 56-game shortened season. But tonight, a 6-2 one-sided final at Staples Center. That's what we're going to talk about here. And interesting enough, because if you were 15 minutes into the game, 3-0 Kings, you're feeling like this one's signed, sealed, delivered, over. I give the Sharks, and specifically Tomas Hertl, a lot of credit for coming back and actually making this a way more interesting game, 17-49 into the second period. It's 3-2. It was a one-goal game going into the third period. And that would give you enough hope. You're in it. You're certainly not out of it. It was an uphill battle to get those 3 goals erased, but then within a span of, seriously, 2 minutes, 3 Kings goals, 4:51, 5:58, and 6:56 of the third period. So kind of deceiving in a sense that, 6-2 would make you think, well, the Sharks were never in it. They actually were in it for a brief period of time, but overall they were out of tonight's game more than they were actually in it. And I have to say, of their first dozen, this is something I've been saying, through 11 games, that maybe 8 of 11 could have gone either way. Tonight's game, to me, in the end, could not have necessarily gone either way. At periods, you were led to believe that the trajectory of the game was going to change and the Sharks could take it over and they could claw all the way back and level this thing back up. But, and going on the storylines too, what I found interesting was the amount of opposites that we witnessed. LA this season has been a bad first period team. They outscored the Sharks 3-1. The Sharks have been a bad second period team. That's the only period where they scored and LA didn't. Three in the first, 3 in the third for the Kings, and there's your game right there. So a second period for the Sharks where they not only won the scoreboard, they got off the power play schneid, right? They were 1 for 30 before Logan and Hertl connected on that power play goal. They shut out the Kings, and also individually for Tomas Hertl in that in tonight's game, 2 goals. He had gone 8 without finding the back of the net. So lots of breakdown here, lots to discuss. Forgot to hit the 10-minute timer. How far along into this are we? 3.5 minutes already. All right. I just hit a 10. I'm going to stick to a hard 10 tonight so I can go eat dinner and get some rest. But I do want to say this, before we even had the puck drop tonight, we found out this morning that Devan Dubnyk, in fact, has been dealing with a lower body injury. It's not brand new. It's something that Bob Boughner said had been lingering. And look, is that why Jones started 2 nights ago versus Dubnyk? Dubnyk was 1 bad bounce away from pitching a shutout in Game 2 of the Anaheim series. So, maybe it was a fact that Dubnyk was not an option in Game 1 of LA, and certainly he wasn't available tonight. And another game tonight where Jones gets pulled, Boughner was a bit harsh. I thought, and as we'll go here period by period, he thought especially the first period goaltending wasn't up to, I believe, standard is the word he used, and he said it wouldn't be up to Martin Jones's standard either. But I go back and look at the 3 goals. Anze Kopitar on the power play, so there's already something for you. But he used Erik Karlsson as a screen for his shot. Okay, again, shot it right off the left dot. But if Jones can't see it, Jones is going to have a harder time stopping it. The second goal was a Jared Anderson-Dolan shot that went off Carl Gunderstrom's shin pad. So unintentional deflection right out front that goes their way. All right, so now it's 2-0. And then 3-0 is the Sharks absolutely looking like their best power play performance in 3 weeks, 2 weeks at least. And they couldn't score. And then literally as time ticks away, Austin Wagner, who was in the box for 2 minutes for cross-checking, gets fed this nice stretch pass. He goes the other way, a 1-on-none. He makes it 3-zip. I don't know. I actually look at some of the later goals as the ones where maybe you want to talk about, how Jones's night went. But frustrating all three of those the way that LA scored. Not just frustrating in the sense that they were up 3-0, the way they scored the goals. Some fortunate stuff going their way, some preventable stuff by San Jose. And so that's that. And as for the goalie situation with the Sharks, I mean, it's one right now where Jones now has a goals against average of above 4. And that's not going to bode well, but this remains his opportunity to get more looks, to get more chances, and to win this job. And according to Bugner, the injury for Dubnyk, it's lower body. And by the way, it is so imperative, as the Sharks did, but it is so imperative these days that all professional sports leagues and teams provide media and other sources and fans with accurate injury and timely injury information. Because if you just say, hey, Dubnyk's out tonight, and you don't specify this is a non-COVID issue, speculation runs rampant. And honestly, why wouldn't it? Because we've seen so many cases and causes. And now, you worry about not only the individual, first and foremost, and their family, first and foremost, but then you also say, well, did this spread among the team? Who else could be, ailing and feeling the effects? I mean, it gets crazy pretty fast. But good on the Sharks that we knew instantly it was just a lower body injury. He listed as day-to-day, but yeah, this is a thing for this team right now to be able to try and figure out what goaltending is going to look like the rest of the way, what Jones can do with this opportunity, and maybe when Dubnyk is going to come back. So there you go on that. For LA, now think about this. They have Jonathan Quick. We didn't see him 2 games in a row. And as far as I know, there's nothing specific holding him back. So Calvin Peterson right now with, a shootout loss the other night and a 2-goal performance tonight, 2 goals against, might be their guy moving forward. And Todd McLellan is searching for something. Maybe he's found it there. I talked about San Jose getting a power play goal tonight. Critical because just like Hertl got off the schneid, 8 games without a goal, the Sharks' power play was 1 for its prior 30. It was 1 for 29 going into the game, 0 for 1 in that first period attempt where they looked good, just couldn't capitalize, and then they finally got the goal in the middle frame. So, you're 1 for 30, and I understand you went through a rough patch. You just hope now that 2 for 31 becomes 3 for 34, 4 for 35, 5 for 37. You see what I'm saying? Like, you just hope that they come a lot more often now than they were before. You don't want to be hovering around where they were entering tonight, 15% on power play conversion. I do want to take some time to answer questions, take a look at comments. I see there's a couple of them in here already. I've been doing such a bad job at that. And realistically tonight, there's just not a ton to go over with this game. There's not. For San Jose, and let me point out a few more things that I definitely want to get to. I know there will be discussion of Erik Karlsson, and he's got 4 points now on the season. Did pick up a secondary assist tonight. As Brett Hedican mentioned on the broadcast, was having a relatively good game, doing a lot of small things and frequent small things well. Then he had a turnover, which led to a Los Angeles goal. Just a rough sequence of events. And I also want to say this. I mean, here's a guy like Mario Ferraro tonight, having a pretty good season, looking more and more comfortable every game, but he was on the ice for 5 of the 6 goals against. Look, frustrating. You have those nights. And I know Mario will bounce back just fine from it, and be the better be better from it somehow, some way. But yeah, just in terms of tonight's game and the way it played out, not one to file away in the good side. And the frustrating other part about it is you're already going to get a group that was so happy right now. In fact, as I do this here live at almost 11:10 p.m., the team should be arriving back to San Jose any moment on their charter flight. They will just be so happy to know that their next game is at the Tank. A very different Tank than they're ever accustomed to, by the way. How weird is it going to be when they skate through that Shark Head and there's no fans there? It's going to be different. I'm interested to see it. Certainly we should have seen it, by now if all things were better in Northern California. But just glad that they're able to play these games. And I do want to say this. Precaution-wise, I got a media email about what the Sharks are doing at the building to make sure everybody's safe. Really love to see the protocols listed out and as much work and effort as they've put into keeping everybody safe in their home building. Makes you kind of, proud to work with the franchise and the organization to see how much, like I said, that they've invested not only financially but logistically, and rules and regulation stuff that they've laid out, not even for the players. The league and the Players Association handles that. I'm talking about employees, arena workers, media, broadcast people. Really cool that they're going to, take care of everybody, test everybody coming in, and make sure that, they can minimize everything possible. Let's see. Mega Roll X says, yeah, the Vegas games are going to be rough to say the least. Well, they're only going to get one Las Vegas game on Saturday, and then their next game, because of the scheduling snafu, is going to be Anaheim at home. But yeah, looking at the Golden Knights, who, yes, did lose a game tonight, 1-0 to the Ducks, they're in first place for a reason. And they've gone through some COVID issues already, stuff that could derail a team from a hot start. Certainly hasn't thrown them off yet. But I would also say this: the Sharks have, when they went up against the Avs, when they went up against St. Louis, even games they played against Minnesota, the Sharks have played up to other opponents who may be projected as higher teams in the standings. I don't feel like the Sharks are going to get stomped, certainly, but I do think that they need to establish themselves against Las Vegas as early as possible. You're going to play 8 games against these guys. Figure out what works against them, and hopefully some home cooking. Hopefully the home atmosphere is part of an energy that you will feel on Saturday, which will be a day game, which will be a weird 1:00 start, but hopefully some of that energy translates for Team Teal. Is Jonesy lacking confidence? EDP's toilet. Is that your screen name, really? Says he looks lost out there. It's crazy about Martin Jones. So good in the last 5-6 years in shootouts. So good on the penalty kill when you're shorthanded a guy out there. So good in 3-on-3 overtime. But occasionally has issues 5-on-5. Well, in the last couple of years, it's been more of a noticeable trend. So I don't want to speak for him and say confidence. I think he came into this season as confident as he had ever been. He worked on a lot of different things, and it seemed to be paying off initially. But I would say right now, again, with the 4.02 goals against average, it's probably not a great feeling for him right now. Whether it's him, whether it's the team defense in front of him, and again, I do want to point this out: goals against average is here's my 10-minute timer, is a team stat. As much as you want to say it lies on the individual, it's a team stat. Save percentage and goals against are a reflection of the chances that opponents are getting. And if you're really bad and you're the goalie and you're letting them in, left and right, if you're Swiss cheese out there, yeah, I guess it counts against you. But, at this level, it's a combination. It's not just the goalie. It's not like baseball where there's an earned run average and errors don't count. Defensive errors don't count. Here, defensive errors count against that goals against. Whether it's a turnover, whether it's a player from the opposition right out front just getting 2 and 3 chances in the scoring area. And we've seen that from the Sharks this year. And, fortunately, the Sharks have not been out of a lot of games this year. tonight's game, going to rule, like I said, going to rule them out of it overall from start to finish. But you can really only say it's happened maybe 4 times now. So they're going to continue playing a lot of close games. That's the theme of this season, finding ways to win as many games as possible. If you're going to be in them and you're that close to the results you want, finding ways to win. It would be great if there was one, and I've said this before, I know it's either an identity or a calling card, but I'm going to go with blueprint. If they can find a blueprint to get some wins going, then I think that's what's most imperative for this team. Finding the blueprint is going to lead to more wins down the road. All right. Scott here saying, I'd say being on the road for so long, including training camp, that we shouldn't be too upset that they finished the road trip just under 500. And again, I mean, I do want to say this. Tonight was a case where if the Sharks won, and of course Anaheim won too, so they were going to sit in that 4 spot no matter what with their win. But, had the Sharks won and got the 2 points, they would be sitting just outside of 4th place in the Pacific Division. And as discussed all evening tonight, 12 games in, all road games, all things considered, all against the odds, to come home in a playoff spot, you'd be pretty content with that. So, look, they're not terribly far away from that. Fortunately, at this point, the West is still tight. But I'll close it out with this. I guess I was saying they need to establish a blueprint. And I think the bigger thing to go with that is they need to find a way to play well at home. They need to make that some kind of an advantage. And I realize it's not the same atmosphere. It's not the home ice that it always has been and especially used to be, but they've got to capture something at home here and make it work. Because if they want a chance to be that 3rd or 4th team in this division, let's be honest, that's a tough assignment. I think a lot of it's going to start at home. Hey, hit me up on the social if you would. And I realize I'm preaching to the choir for a lot of people here because hopefully you're already with me on Twitter. You're already with me on Instagram. I meant to point at the camera. I pointed at the screen because the screen's over there. But hit me up on, well, I don't really comment back on Facebook. I post some things there and then I just let them go. I check in once in a while, I suppose. But really working hard here on YouTube. And by the way, tomorrow, you saw Raffi Torres on our pregame show tonight and intermissions. Going to put some Raffi clips out. I still have some more good Drew Amenda clips to put out, so subscribe to the channel right here, right now, next week or so. Some good stuff that you, the Sharks fan, will hopefully enjoy. As well as baseball pretty soon and other life stuff and live streams. So, hey, that does it for tonight. I will see you back maybe on Saturday night and at least Saturday on TV for pre- and post-game live. Good night, everybody.